Hey, let's have a look on acute oral toxicity and acute toxic class method. So, what is acute oral toxicity, acute toxic class method? Selection of animal species in acute toxic class method are, preferably is rat. And normally we'll use female rat, because generally female is slightly more sensitive. Next is adult animal that healthy and young as they should be non-pregnant and nulliparous. For housing and feeding conditions, experimental animal room temperature should be at 22 degrees Celsius. Humidity of the room at least 30% and not exceed 70%. Except during room cleaning should be at 50% to 60%. Lighting should be artificial and 12 hours light and 12 hours dark. For feeding, conventional laboratory diets may use with unlimited drink supply. In preparation of animals, animals are randomly selected, but they are marked to permit individual identification. Animals should be kept in cage for at least 5 days, to allow acclimatization to laboratory conditions. Last, for preparation of doses, test substances should be administered in constant volume over the range of doses and varying the concentration of dosing preparation. The toxicological characteristic for a vehicle other than water should be known. Doses must be prepared shortly prior to administration unless stability of the preparation over time is known.
So, let us have a look on the mechanisms and procedures. The duration of the testing is about 20 days, including at least 5 days of caging of the animals, including either rats or mice, prior to dosing to allow for acclimatization to the laboratory conditions, and followed by 14 days of close attention. The animals are observed individually after dosing at least once in the first 30 minutes, with special attention given during the first 4 hours as well as the first 24 hours and daily thereafter for a total 14 days, except where the animals need to be removed from the study and humanely killed for the animal welfare reasons or are found dead. However, the duration of observation or the target organs to be observed in the testing should not be fixed rigidly, but it should be determined by the severity of toxic reactions appeared, time of onset and the length of recovery period, and may thus be extended when necessary. The animals should be fasted prior to dosing, in which the rats were fasted in food but not water for overnight, whereas mice were fasted for 3 to 4 hours before the dosing. Following the period of fasting, the animals should be weighed. The test substance or drugs is usually administered in a single dose by gavage method using either a stomach tube or an intubation cannula. If the test substance or drugs is not possible to be administered in a single dose, then the dose may be given in smaller fraction over a period not exceeding 24 hours. Usually, the test needs 12 animals to be administered and observed with, which means there are 3 animals are used for each steps. The dose level to be used is the starting doses selected from either 5, 50, 300 and 2000 mg per kilogram of body weight. As for information, the starting dose level is actually referring to the dosage level which is most likely to produce the mortality in the dosed animals. After the test substance or drugs has been administered, the food is still withheld for another 3 to 4 hours for rats and 1 to 2 hours in mice. If the dosing is administered in fractions over a period, it is necessary to provide the animals with food and water depending on the length of the period. The time intervals were calculated and determined by the onset, duration, and severity of toxic signs appeared on the dosed animals. The treatment of animals at the next dose should be delayed until one is confident of survival of the previously dosed animals.
Now, let's look at the interpretation of data. The test result of the ATC is interpreted by the class limit of an administration of a single dose level, which causes the mortality of an animal in the test. By the determination of a dose level that causes mortality, the acute toxicity of the drugs is categorized into 5 categories. For instance, the dose level of a drug required to cause acute toxicity would be categorized under Category 1, if it is less than or equal to 5 mg per kilogram to body weight, and causes the mortality of more than 2 animals.
Let's move on to the advantages and limitations of acute oral toxicity test. The acute oral toxicity test is a cost-efficient method. It involves small setups that allow little test substance which requires only 3 animals per step. In this practice, testing the toxicity of the drug in one sex is considered sufficient, preferably female since they are more sensitive to the acute toxic effects of chemicals than the males. Moreover, this test involves ease of interpretation of results obtained where the absence or presence of compound-related mortality determine the next step. In this acute oral toxicity test, there is no siting study involved, which means that there is no selection of appropriate starting concentration for the main study. This test is also not intended to allow the calculation of precise LD50 as the depth of proportion of animals is the major endpoint. Furthermore, reaction may act different towards humans and animals since both has their own specific physiology and metabolism. Lastly, this test is time-consuming, which takes about 20 days to obtain the results. Thank you.